The worst part is that because of the tyranny of the minority, they have made a change that is partial to the people in power. It says the updated rule will go into effect this week, according to a Senate official. The change, this is key, most people have missed this in the reporting. The change applies only to senators. Staff members will still be required to follow the old dress code. Let's talk about the new dress code in the Senate. Last week, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer announced that they were relaxing the long-held dress code for the 100 U.S. senators. They could now choose what they wear on the Senate floor. This is being called the Fetterman Rule, as the Pennsylvania senator has been wearing gym shorts and hoodies around the Capitol building this year. Some say it's 2023. Who cares about dress codes? Others are appalled that one of the highest offices in the land is losing its decorum. I believe these conversations are hiding the larger issues at play, and I do believe that there are some much larger issues. For anyone who actually knows me, or maybe who attends MetaChurch or who watches us online, your thought might be, is this the guy to talk to us about dress codes? No! Okay, so maybe. If you know anything about MetaChurch, we're very relaxed in how we dress. And we have tried to create a culture, like James talks about, people coming into your house or coming into the banquet and showing partiality or favoritism to people based on how they're dressed. And I grew up in religious environments where people were ostracized or put aside because they didn't have the right dress code to walk into the Sunday service. They didn't have the suit and tie. They didn't have the dress that went down far enough. They didn't have the pantyhose. That was back in my church days. Everyone had to wear pantyhose. Everyone, men and women, had to wear pantyhose. No, I'm just kidding. It's just the women. But everyone had to dress nice, And Jesus came and he showed up to the people who didn't have the dress code down, and they didn't have the social etiquette down. These are the people that he went to. And so in the church context, we've created an environment where people feel comfortable to come in exactly as they are. And we feel like God has really blessed that. And we don't throw shade on any of the churches around us in San Antonio who do have a culture of suit and tie, if that works for them and they're promoting the gospel and people are coming to Jesus. And we are all the way for that. It takes all different cultures in the church. And that's why God calls all the different saints and equips the saints to do the work of ministry in their unique ways. However, it's not true that we have no dress code. Now, for people who are coming in, as long as you're not just butt naked, you can come to MetaChurch. We're like really, really relaxed. On stage, the people who are going to be on stage as musicians or speakers or preachers, we do have some guidelines. One thing for me, it's always been this way, even back when I was a musician. I never let my band wear shorts on stage. To me, it just doesn't look professional. Now, if you're from kind of higher church, then you would come and see me with jeans with holes in them and lots of tattoos and think that we just completely look professional. So I understand that there's, scales to that and there's different standards for different people. I don't like shorts on stage. We don't do that. We have a few other things that we ask people to follow as guidelines. Also, in different environments where I'm playing roles, like when I am officiating a funeral or when I'm directing a wedding, or in certain other environments that I'm invited into, I dress for those occasions. I own a suit and tie. That's what I wear when I do funerals, because it is a serious and somber moment. I'm not going to wear holy jeans and my scoop neck shirt. I'm going to wear a suit and tie. When I marry people, unless they ask me to dress casual, which some of our people will, but unless they ask for that, I show up in a suit and tie. And so I believe in dressing for the occasion. And the rule is something like, when you're trying to create inclusivity, then you allow for greater and greater range of casual and for a greater scope of dress and design and the way that people like to carry themselves and dress themselves. When you're doing something that is by nature exclusive, not everyone's invited to the funeral. Not everyone's invited to the wedding. It's a moment in time. It's something that's happening. Then I dress pretty formal, suit. And I actually don't usually wear a tie, but I would if they asked me to. And so there's two sides to this, and there's been arguments by great thinkers throughout history. G.K. Chesterton said, tradition means giving votes to the most obscure of all classes, our ancestors. It is the democracy of the dead. That's what he calls tradition. That's a very positive view of tradition. Like, we should know where we come from. And there is this tradition within the Senate when you're on the floor that you dress to show that this matters and I'm showing up and this is important and this is formal. Ralph Waldo Emerson had a completely different take. He said, society is always taken by surprise at any new example of common sense. Society is always taken by surprise at any new example of common sense. Like, why are we doing this? Why does it matter if as senators we wear a suit and tie? It's 2023. As long as we hold the right issues in the right positions, and as long as we represent the people who put us here, who cares if we're in gym shorts and hoodies? John Fetterman is the person who really has made this shift. He is one of 100 senators. Here on Axios, says, Scoop, Schumer ditches Senate's informal dress code. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer quietly has directed the Senate Sergeant at Arms to no longer enforce the chamber's informal dress code for its members. Axios has learned the new directive will allow Senator John Fetterman, a Democrat from Pennsylvania, who tends to favor gym shorts and hoodies over the business attire traditionally required in the chamber, to linger on the Senate floor before and after votes. Senators are able to choose what they wear on the Senate floor. I will continue to wear a suit, Schumer said in a statement. Fetterman, who was elected last year, initially followed Senate tradition and wore suits, but since returning to the Senate after being treated for clinical depression earlier this year, he frequently has sported the casual look he was known for as Pennsylvania's lieutenant governor. So I believe that there is a debate that could be had. I am naturally anti-establishment. I pastor a church where I preach in holy jeans and Jordan 1s and t-shirts and have tattoos and piercings. Like, that's my natural vibe. I also, for whatever reason, have a hard time picturing the 100 senators on the Senate floor all just wearing athletic wear. I have a hard time imagining myself officiating a funeral in, cargo shorts and a t-shirt. It just seems like there are certain moments and certain environments where dress matters. I do think that there is a debate that could be had. I want to get to what I think is the actual issue here. And really, it's two issues I'm combining into one. The issue of dress code is up for debate. However, it should be decided based on principle and function, not to make exception for one unmovable individual. All of this, 99 other people are now having to give into a dress code, which a lot on the right have already come out and are against. Interestingly, there's a handful of people on the left who are senators who have now come out and said we should not be doing this. But all of this is to make an exception for one person. And what that's called is the tyranny of the minority. The tyranny of the minority. 1 out of 100 is about as small of a minority as you can have. It's a minority of one. He is an army of one fighting against the evils of the dress code. And the tyranny of the minority is something that is very common because often when you get pushed into a minority position, you have very little to lose. And so you can have the loudest voice. We see this in social situations, even family situations all the time. This is like when one person in the family has gone on some obscure diet, they're gluten-free, soy-free, dairy-free, they're whatever free, or they're keto only, or they're whatever. And there's going to be 40 people at Thanksgiving, but this one person is gluten-free and they're very loud about it and they're very vocal about it. And they will be very offended if there aren't gluten-free options. And so now all of the 40 people who are adding to the Thanksgiving potluck, everyone has to make one dish that's normal and a gluten-free dish. They got to bring one loaf of regular rolls, yeast rolls, and one loaf and one set of gluten-free rolls. Like, everyone now is under the tyranny of the minority instead of what seems obvious in just telling this one person, we would love for you to bring whatever gluten-free, soy-free, vegan-free, sugar-free, all the frees, options that you need. Like, you bring whatever you need. No one's going to look sideways at you. But like, everyone is not going to bend and be inconvenienced for one person. We see examples of this in scripture. The golden calf, the spies in Canaan, the demand for King Saul. These are all examples of a minority of voices swaying a nation to their cause, and not a good cause. If you remember the golden calf, Moses was up on the mountain and this minority of voices come to Aaron, and they want to worship the same way they worshiped back in Egypt. And so just because this group of people want to do it, everyone now has to participate. Everyone takes their earrings off and they melt it down. They make an idol. The spies who go into Canaan, there were 12 spies, and it's 10 people who go in. And they get scared of the Canaanites, and they sway the entire nation, 1 million plus people. 10 people are like, they're too big, we can't do it. 1 million people lose faith in God. The people say, give us a king. We want a king. And Israel needs a king. The other nations have a king. And Samuel, the prophet, is like, man, this is not what God wants. And this small minority of voices who are the loudest, and that's often how it happens. And all of these were bad things. All of these were setbacks. All of these were against God. And so we have one person, and we're going to make this change for one person, and that's poor leadership, and it's poor decision-making. If we want to have a debate about the dress code based on policy and the function of the Senate, then that's fine. You can make those decisions, but to allow one person to stand at the steering wheel. And that is not even the worst part of all of this. The worst part is that because of the tyranny of the minority, they have made a change that is partial to the people in power. It says the updated rule will go into effect this week, according to a Senate official. The change, this is key, most people have missed this in the reporting. The change applies only to senators. Staff members will still be required to follow the old dress code. So if you're an aide, if you're an intern, if you're the social media manager for John Fetterman, he gets to wear gym shorts and hoodies. You wear a suit and tie. You wear a formal dress. I've been to the Senate chambers. I've watched them there in DC, and you sit up high. You're expected as like an everyday person to dress nice. That's an expectation from me. I have to dress nice to go in. The only people who are exempt are the most powerful people in the room. And so the tyranny of the minority is being addressed, and they're making a carve out, but the carve out is favoritism toward the powerful. This has led to a situation where the senators, who are those who have the most power in the room, are exempt, while their staff and everyday people are still held to a higher standard. In James 2:9, it says, if, however, you show favoritism, you commit sin and are convicted by the law as transgressors. And this is specifically about if you give deference and preferential treatment to the rich and the powerful and the elite at the expense of those who are lower on the social dynamic, lower on the power hierarchy. And so not only are we allowing one person to hold all of the cards here, not only are we making a change in leadership, change happens all the time. Change is such a good thing, but change should be strategic. You should understand first the function of what you're trying to accomplish, and then you put the forms in place under that. We know the function of what we're trying to accomplish at MetaChurch. We're trying to be a church specifically for the unchurched, the de-churched, and even the anti-church. So people who will not go to church anywhere else. And out of that function, part of form is dress code. Part of form is environment and how people are going to feel. And if they have to attend, they first have to go to Men's Warehouse and buy a suit. They're not going to do it. And so we have created a casual environment for people to show up and to experience God in a real way. The Senate can have that debate, but it is poor leadership. It's poor planning. And it is really vile to make this decision where the most powerful people in the room benefit from it because of one guy, the tyranny of the minority, and everyone else is still held to the same standard. I hope you enjoyed this clip from the Clayton Tyner podcast. If you want to watch the full podcast, you can check that out somewhere right around here. And if you want to subscribe, you can do that right over here somewhere. Also, you can follow me at Clayton Tyner. That's Tyner on Twitter and Instagram. I would love for you to subscribe to the channel so you can keep up with everything that we're doing.